Good evening, and welcome to this session on powering equality. Now, the Nordic region is widely recognized as a global leader in gender equality, yet, even here, women remain underrepresented in the energy sector, one of the least gender diverse industry worldwide. This is not just a Nordic challenge, but a global challenge. Today, we explore why equality matters for the green transition, how we can accelerate real change, and how inclusion can become a driver for sustainability and innovation. So let's start, and I would like to introduce you to the distinguished panel here together with me. At my left side, I have 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂. She's a member of the parliament in Denmark. Welcome.
Thank you.
I have, you will all have a chance to introduce yourself a little bit more. And I have 𝗔𝘀𝘁𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗂𝐶𝗲𝗂𝗂𝗂 You are Director of Research and Development from DNV in Norway, sorry. And then I have Morten 𝗔𝘀𝘀𝘁𝗁𝗂𝗂𝗂, and you are Group Senior Vice President in Vestas in Denmark. So warm welcome to all three of you. Let's start by setting the scene. I can start with you, Lea, if that's okay. You're welcome to just say a few words about yourself, but otherwise I would like to dig a little bit in as an opening question to this. Why you think we have this gender gap? I mean, we have in the Nordic a country where we are proud of having equality, and yet in the energy sector we still have a gap. Why do you think that it's true?
Well, I think when you look at gender, it also comes down to our educational system. And so it links with our labor market, where we see a very gender, what do you say, like a very traditional role of women and men in the labor market. And so I think what we need to look at is our education. So to get more girls and women interested in the STEM education, so the more technical educations. And I don't think it's because they are not interested. I think it lies with our cultural expectations of which kind of educations that women and men enter into. So I think we've seen some inspiring examples in Denmark of what you can do about it, but I think it links back to the education system.
So also to set the scene from you, Astrid. So when we see the gender gap actually starting from the education, you are on the research side. What doesn't matter that we don't have equality there? Sorry. Did you hear it, or shall I repeat? Okay, so I just wanted to link what Lea's saying about that it started in education, but that also means that when you come to the research side, then you actually have the research gap. So I'm just wondering, you with your long experience from the research and development side, how does that influence the innovation, the research, that you have this gender gap?
Yeah, I think having equal-based gender in research and innovation is about tapping into the full potential. Females are half the population. And if we're not willing to tap into the full talent pool, we just miss out talents. So it's so easy like that. I think all for females who it's okay to go to work, happy to go to work, they're more than one. So you need a group so that you can balance the culture, you feel happy at staying at work. So I think if you are a team with one female only, I often see that female leaves the team. So you need to build a balanced team.
Yeah. But how does it affect the innovation or the research that you have still? Because I understand the reason. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you're asking if the result of the research are different because it's a female or a male, I don't have any research to say anything about that. And I come from a very technical field. I think if you come from more social or psychology, I'm sure you see bigger differences. From my field, I think it's very hard to see if the result from research is actually dependent on the gender. I think it's difficult historically. However, going into AI and the future, how we build AI systems, it is a little bit based on, you can build in biases and you can build in more how does that impact society is a little bit more challenging, I think. So now technology, democracy, and how the scientific world and the society is working is impacting by the technology. I'm sure that is also in the... But now it's even more just because we're basing the results on past history. So we're actually reinforcing biases if they're there already. So I think that's an interesting aspect to think of.
Okay. And then to you, Morten, you're working in one of the big industries, Vestas. So what actually works in practice when you have to move from ambition to real cultural change in the workplace? Can you say something about that, please?
Yeah. First of all, we're not doing very well as an industry. I've been with the company now for 20 years, and if you reflect back on those 20 years, I mean, when I started, you would be hard pressed to find any females at any of our industry events or trade associations and the big companies. I mean, it was really male dominated. So we have come some way. When you go to, for example, a Wind Europe conference, I mean, you see many, many more females now than you did 20 years ago. So a lot has happened, but we are still, as an industry, we have a tremendous challenge here. I mean, we have fought in Vestas, and we are still just 25% female leadership right now. And modest goal in 2030 to be 30% in leadership positions to be females. So it is really, I think we've been sleeping in the industry, to be honest, and we have to broaden the talent base dramatically because we have a hard time just finding people in general, male or female, for some of the critical jobs like offshore construction or service technicians. That there's nothing that hinders females for taking these jobs. It's a little bit back to the education system, but it's definitely also upon us in the industry to promote this sector in a better way to female talents out there.
So any one of you want to comment on that before I move on? Feel free, Leah.
Well, as a politician, of course, I think policies matter. And so what we see in the Nordic countries is that there is a general backing of, gender equality and also to promote it within industries. And still we are not doing good enough. But just to give a positive example, there's this initiative called Bus Ladies in Denmark, where an NGO called Diverse are working to recruit females into different kind of the labor market where it's very male dominated. And I think, as you mentioned, it's not only about recruiting, it's also about maintaining. So if you actually take the education, you come to a very male dominated place of work, and there's not really a space for you to be there. The work uniform or whatever, there's so many things, maybe how you talk at the place where you work. So I think there's a whole leading by examples where you can also get mentoring, and you have maybe a group of other young women where you can share your experiences. So that has been a very good initiative. And of course, it can't stand alone, and that is why I think we also need, from a policy perspective, to influence, to have role models, to make sure that we have regulation in place, also for companies to live up to. in terms of making our workplaces diverse. And I think for us, why it's a political issue is also about getting every talent on board. So for politics, I would say we also have some way to go, right? So we are still also kind of male dominated within a lot of politics, at least if you look at it globally. So I think it's really important that we also have this kind of conversation to look to the good and positive examples and share how we can do better.
And one good example from our industry, related to what you're saying, Lei, is that from our Global Wind Association, 𝗔𝘀𝘀𝘁𝗿, we created an initiative called Women in Wind, exactly for that reason. I mean, to first of all to highlight the fantastic female talent we have in the industry, but also as a graduate channel into the sector. And in Vestas, we have a graduate program as well. We really try through channels to get the right female talent in. But as you say, it's hard. Then you come in. I mean, I have an easy time because, I'm responsible for the marketing, comms, public affairs, sustainability, those kind of functions. I have a huge pool of female, and I have 100 employees across the whole world. There's probably 60% females in my team. So it's not that females don't want to work in Vestas. It is the specific, mainly engineering, technician, manufacturing parts where we struggle. And so we have to have a real focus on that, working together with the policymakers to make sure that talent funnel is filled up, and then create environments within Vestas, because we also have a hard time once we get the talent in to keep it, because there is a certain male jargon and way of doing things, because that's where we've always been as a very male-dominated industry. And so it also is upon us as leaders in the company to make sure we create that, inviting culture that sort of embraces female talents in the company. But it's a struggle. It's a cultural struggle, basically. So it's taking some time. But I will say, to the positive side, there's a huge focus on this in the industry now, and we are all we go through diversity training, and we're all getting aware, and we're talking about it, and we're putting the good examples up. So I think things will change. That's my feeling, but it's gonna take time.
I agree with you. It's a cultural thing. A lot of times you hear they don't have the right education, or they don't have the right experience, or whatnot. But it has to start with a culture, because females are not stupid. We can be trained. We can do amazing things. If you just leave it because you don't find anyone today, you have to start that training program. Train them. Give them the education. And especially when we're talking about construction and not a PhD in AI or so on, it doesn't take that long. And I think people are willing to do it if they get trained, and if they feel that they're coming to a place where they can feel safe. So I would say it matters who hire. Put the right people to do the hiring. That is where you need to start. And then if they're not finding anyone, then they need to do an action to actually be able to find someone. Do something. Because it's so easy to say. And I met so many recruiters myself and saying they can't find women. Even when I sit in front of them and I am over-educated for that role. It's actually, they're very easy to use that excuse, and it should not be allowed. If you're using it, you have to start to implement an action to change it. And it can be changed in a very short time.
But as Morten said, it's a cultural thing. So when you come into a culture, you said it was hard to keep them in the culture. So I was thinking, when we are in a changing world, we get new energy carriers, we get a lot of, if you look at the energy system, it has changed quite a lot since the old days with the old fossil plants and central planning, to a lot of new things and a lot of new services and so on. So I was wondering if we can use equality as a driver for sustainability. are there areas of the green transition, such as new energy technology, startup, or hydrogen value chains, or whatever, where we have a unique opportunity to build equality in from the start? Is that a challenge to take? And who will take it up?
It's easier to build from start than trying to change an old culture. So, yes, it is easier. So, so if you're conscious from the very start, you have a great opportunity. Because obviously, when we're talking about oil and gas or the very old legacy systems, it has a very set culture already. And that is a big job to change. I've been in the oil and gas industry myself, and actually it wasn't that hard for me as a female, but I see that if you want to change something, change from the start and work with it. I think that is easier.
I think in Denmark we have this saying, a good beginning is half the ended. So. Morten, you want to comment on it?
Yeah, I mean, we're a 15-year-old company, and you know the imagery we use and the words we use about ourselves, the heroes we celebrate, has always had a very sort of manly feel to it. When you look at the heroes of Vestas, the one who shaped it, you know, these men and these inventors and these, you know, founders, and then you have like the imagery we use, which is like, oh, men in hard hats and big machinery, and you know, it's dirty oil on the face and blah blah. You know, I'm painting a picture here, right? And I'm not saying there's a lot of females who are not attracted to like work in those environments. We have to be conscious about how do we actually portray ourselves. How do we attract certain groups of people that looks at more value-based, more value-based on Vestas. Like, okay, what are we actually contributing with rather than just building big machines? You know, we making the world a better place? Are we saving the future generations? Are we, what kind of language are we using to attract a broader base rather than people who are interested in hard hat and big machines? So it's a little, caricature based here, but we have at least gone through a process where we started being very conscious about how we portray ourselves. What are we talking about when we say something to the market, and what kind of imagery are we using, right? And that is making a difference, I can see.
But you, Morten, coming from the industry, I would like to catch up on that and say, is there a business case for equality? I mean, how can it be communicated more effectively if there's a business case? And how can you communicate it to a politician like Lea or to the industry leaders?
There is a huge business case to get more females trained in engineering and technician and those kind of things. I mean, for us, it's a matter of scaling up. We can't scale up if we don't get females to get interested in this. It is an absolute necessity. So business case is undeniable. We have to get females to be more interested in working in the energy sector, not the dirty one, but the clean one, right? We set targets because we can see when we measure across the company, we just make better decisions when we have more equality in the room, not just female, male, but also from different diverse backgrounds. So there's no doubt. So we have pretty clear roadmaps and strategies in place. That takes part of my sustainability team, working very hard on that. We track and we measure. We take new initiatives when we fail, and we have to have an active promotion of this, because it is a matter of business case for us. There's no doubt. It's not just something we do because it's the right thing to do. It's a part of the industry's move to the next level. We have to be the grown-ups in the rooms now. We are the future energy, and we can't rely on the sort of way we've done things before. We have to be tripling renewables, as says in this COP text. We can't triple renewables without females. I mean, it's going to be impossible.
What about you, Lea? What do you think? How could you go in dialogue with the industry?
Well, I think it's good that some of the biggest companies, which Vestas is also part of, is setting the example. So of course it's more difficult maybe if you look at some of the smaller, medium-sized companies, if they don't have regulation in place, or maybe they don't have the same kind of programs. So to be able to look for inspiration, I think that's very important. And being here at the COP, I mean, one thing is Denmark, where we are working, and also in the Nordic countries with this, but it's also being negotiated on this COP an equality strategy. I mean, how to work with gender equality on a global scale. So I think for us, it's about our own talent pool, how to be diverse in our own labor market, but it's also very much about making sure that we get every talent on board when we look at a global scale. And we know women are so important in order to reach the sustainability goals, in order to actually act on climate change. So I think it's not only about getting women on board in the energy sector as such, but getting women on board also when we talk about the global scale. So making sure that the voices of women are heard. And I think here we have a strong legacy in the Nordic region. And with all that's happening now with the US administration pulling back from this agenda, I think there's an even greater need for the Nordic regions to move a little forward and say that this is very important for us.
So Lena, you touched about the Nordic region. So I was just curious if anyone would like to elaborate a little bit about how the Nordic country can use our collaboration to promote this equality globally, as you mentioned, especially through international energy partnerships, maybe, or development cooperation and so on. What do you think, Astrid? Do you have any?
Yeah, how can we as a Nordic countries cooperate and build more female leaders? I think in any country that cooperate and get connections, we can support each other, we can share stories or experiences, and I think that is helpful. We can also train. In Norway we have also Women in Energy that comes together, and then we expose young women to present on stage. It's just having that practice in feeling confident that you can do it, and then when you have tried it in a safe environment, you can go out and do it in a more different environment. So I think having these safe environments where you can train and be exposed, I think it's great, and having someone to talk to in a safe environment as well, it's helpful. Same, going to conferences. If you're very few females, sometimes you feel very alone. Just knowing the others. If you're in wind, for example, and you have a Nordic collaboration, then you can go to a conference and you know people. It's much safer. So I think that just knowing who is in that same industry and have connections, train when you need it, invite good speakers to talk about what's the new stuff going on, so you have something interesting to talk about, to the people that you meet, build strength and confidence, and have a community.
No, it was good to get this tip here. I mean, I understand that there is females in energy in Norway, and now I know where to look to recruit them away from oil and into the wind sector in Denmark. That's fantastic. So I love that. No, kidding aside, I mean, maybe I mean, from when you look at the Nordics, who is doing better and who is doing worse. I mean, I know Denmark statistically, we're not doing too well when you look at the Nordic family when it comes to attracting females to the sector. But I don't know if I mean, where is the country that we can learn from? Is that Norway that has taken the largest steps?
Well, I don't know the exact statistics between the Nordic countries. I've seen statistics with UK, how females in the energy sector is, and also in Norway, and it's not that different. They're still quite low, but a little bit higher in the renewables than it is in oil and gas. The unfortunate thing is that it's not been improving very much lately. It was improving a little bit 10 years ago or so, but then from a very low number, and in the past years it's actually a little bit going back. So it's not so. maybe we're not pushing hard enough today. I don't know. We feel like we are equal. I think a lot of like the society in Norway feel like we have reached equality in a way in the society, and there's a lot of push of taking away these kind of metrics and that push. So especially from young women actually. So I think then specific for energy and some industries, we haven't reached our goal, but in other sectors, it's more equal. And and I think also as a young female, you're not experiencing these issues when you're young. It's actually when you climb up the ladder in a higher positions where you are exposed to the power game. And that's where it starts. And I think that's, but you need to deal with the power game, right? So you need to be trained and also helped to deal with it. It's also a power game between women. So it's not, it's not only men, but it could be different. So you just need to learn how to deal with a power game, because if you don't know how men compete, you don't know how to deal with it. So I think we have to be robust as we climb up, because a lot of, like myself, I came into the industry as a specialist. You know, had a PhD in a field, and then it's quite easy. It's because you're respected, you have power because of your knowledge. But as you move up the ladder and take a different position, it's another thing. And then power is managed differently. Yes. Yeah.
Do we need a role model like mentors and so on? I mean, in Norway and also in Sweden, you have the Power Woman, and you have this the Power Woman of the Year that you announced. I think it's quite powerful, because just the announcement that you are there is giving a lot of attention, and that people can look up to this Power Women. So do we need this kind of role model in the Nordics? Would that help?
We need a power women role model. I think it's good with role models anyway, you know. So you can be a woman and be yourself. That is the ambition, you know. You don't need to copy old man. You know, you need to dress like you want, you know, like a woman, be yourself. And I think being confident in yourself, that's what you need to see in a role model. If that is a power woman, I don't know what that might be. But you need to have something to look up to that is genuine. And so that you can feel that I can also reach this stage by being myself. Because nobody can actually just copy something else and take on a different suit. It's very energy. Drain your energy, and you can't do it for very long. So I think what DNV is doing, which I think is very good, we have a DE&I, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion questionnaire, where we ask everyone, and we're in 100 different countries, so it's very diverse, the employees. Now, how do I feel respected? Do I feel fairly treated? And these kind of questions, and then compare how male and female are responding, and they track that over time. And then you can see, are there actions I need to do or work with my culture to make sure that females also feel as safe? Because it's a trend that females do not feel as respected, as fairly treated. You know, they don't feel as safe as speaking up as males do. So then you need to work with that culture.
Well, I think it's a fantastic example. Let's do it in Denmark, right? Copy that example. And I think role models are really important for instance, myself, I became a board member in a district heating company, and I think one of the reasons why they chose to hire me to be part of the board was also because I'm a woman. And some women in my generation feels a little less valued, if that's a criteria, whereas I think of it, I mean, you're just as bright as you said, and we need the diversity. So being in that energy sector and district heating in Denmark, if you go to the General Assembly there, you would also see that it's not very gender diverse. So we need good examples, and I think what we can also do as women is to lend out our network, our generosity in terms of building networks between women. But mostly, I really believe in structures. So I think if we want to do something about this, it cannot be just voluntary commitments or, you know, extraordinary women who do something extraordinary. We need it to be part of the company's mainstream tools. We need it to be part of our education system. And we need to be able to talk a lot about it in order to change it, and it's, I mean, it's really an issue also here at the COP. I would say when we talk about energy and climate. I mean, the Danish Climate Committee visited a local community in the Amazon while we were here at COP, and there you also see a gender division in terms of labor, and so I think it's really something that reproduces throughout the globe, and so to keep the Nordic voice heard, I think that is maybe also where we as a small region in the world can do a big impact.
Good, thank you. So now I encourage you to, if you want to raise questions to each other, but also if there's someone from the audience who wants to raise a question, it's also very welcome. We have a question here, so please state your name and affiliation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My name is 𝗔𝘀𝘁𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀😂 I am the Director of Education for an organization called 𝗪𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 We have a majority leadership of females in our leadership team, and I sit in our leadership team. I think my question or my provocation or what I want to bring to the table here is I see a lot of focus on training, on the women network, on building us up in terms of our being able to be in strategic conversations, being able to present, all of these different things. I also see a massive, massive fall of women my age that can't be bothered with the game anymore. So my question and my provocation is really around, are we actually doing ourselves and women disservice by training and upskilling them up to a very patriarchal system that they actually then fall out and they don't want to participate in it anymore? Because there are some research on that as well, as that there is a bit of a reverse glass ceiling. At some point, they simply don't want to participate in this way of doing business or this way of doing organizational kind of strategy setting anymore. And it's actually Finland and then Sweden in terms of your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So who wants to answer?
I think it's a really good question. And I mean, I've been in politics for a long time, so I would know it better from the politics side of it, where I can totally recognize that a lot of women are, you know, being elected, they know the power game, but still they are these invisible structures which you can get really, really tired of. And it's very difficult as an individual to change structures. And so, I mean, it's something that takes time, and it is frustrating. But I think one thing that we could learn from the older generations, and I've been talking to some of the women who were elected in Danish politics in the 90s, for instance, what they did was to organize. And I think that is something that we have forgotten in my generation, because we were taught, like you said, Now we have gender equality in the Nordic countries, so you can be whatever you want. You can just go do it. You have the qualification, you have the knowledge, you can just do it. And so we were taught an individual way of working instead of seeing that the structures we are part of is not made up of our individual efforts, and so it becomes the one woman who can get elected in a harsh competition between women instead of saying, well, we want gender equality. So that is something that I'm talking with my female friends and colleagues about. How can we organize across party lines, across my group, across age? Because I think even within the group of women, just in my own group, in the social democratic group, they would say, I mean, that if you reach a certain age as a woman, it's even more difficult to get these kind of positions. So my main focus also when I talk with younger women is to organize. So don't see it as a personal struggle. It's not your individual path that's the most important. It is to organize.
Well, as I grow older, I also feel that, you know, we should be open about this early on, a bit more early than we have been. I grew up in a kind of and I think a lot of people do, like, we have a law against discrimination, everyone is equal, it's a fair play, you just do your best, right? And you believe that for too long. And I think, and then you get very surprised. It's not, and then you understand what's going on. But I think having that understanding that, I don't know, 𝗪𝗏𝗶𝗀, do you know him? Yeah. Like, there are more forces than doing the right thing or doing, you know, equal and so on. That they exist. And just have that education, knowing that they exist early on to prepare, so you're not 50 when you understand it. I think it's actually important, because then you can recognize it, and then you can say, it's not me. It's just that this is how the world works, right? And then you can talk about it with your peers or with your other women or whatever, and it doesn't feel that hard when you understand a little bit more of. And people has been like this forever. It's not something new. You know, it's been a power game since ever. And this is just a part of being in business. We're competing. We have a financial, you know, we're competing and trying to be the best. And then these things also is a part of being a leader. And if you choose being a leader, that's a part of the game. I think we just need to be open about it. And I also I think some men are even open up to me and saying, I feel threatened by you girls. You know, now I have to compete with double up of people. In the past, you know, it was enough competing for me. Now it's so many strong women that I also need to compete with. I'm afraid of that. And okay, but now it's it's time that we are also here, and we also want to play a part in this world, and maybe we just have to say, okay, we're a full, both men and females are playing a part here, and we can shape it as much as the males can.
And I think that shaping part is what we need here. I mean, because this is actually almost like a sociological discussion, right? What goes on in the executive committee or in the boardroom? I mean, as a senior leader for many years, I don't like the way things, you know, are in those parts of the company, and I don't think it has to be like that. You know, it does. You know, it becomes very brutal and cynical, and, you know, fighting, like warfare, like mentality. And then you're told, but yeah, it's because we hold the keys to the entire company, lots at stake. It's a brutal competition. No, it's just some healthy tension, constructive tension. You get these, verbs, these words to describe what is basically a culture that we can change. And so when we talk about a glass ceiling, by God, I hope females can soon smash that glass ceiling and help us, because there's a lot of men that meets that glass ceiling and say, no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. Then they also opt out from being in a top leadership position because they don't like that culture either, right? So it's not necessarily a male-female. It's a certain type of men that enjoys being like that, right? And I think we can do all of us a service if females breaks that glass ceiling and starts changing the culture. We can be nice to each other even when you sit in a room with that much power. There's nothing that, it's not like set in stone that we have to be cold-hearted warriors.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have more comments, or because otherwise I will try to sum up, or not sum up, but just round it off. So just by ending here, I would like to look a little bit forward and see what is the next step that could be done. So if the four of us will meet here again at the COP in 2 years' time, what progress which progress would we look at? I mean, what are the one change that each of you, would like to see be implemented by then?
Are we talking about equality or something?
Oh, yeah.
I'm afraid that, as you were saying as well, the time is against the policy in general, and it's going to affect this room as well. It is almost like there is this backlash or anti-wave now, and I think that is going to be, unfortunately, holding us back for some years until we see more sensible voices coming back. But it's all around, and I see a whole group of men who really feels emboldened again, who felt that they were held down, and it's time for, it's their time again, and they're not afraid of being men. And you get that rhetoric, and you hear that a lot in the corridors, and so I think we have to get used to that. The next couple of years are going to be a little bit shaky, but my hope is that, in this group, at least just as we come here to insist that climate hasn't gone away as a theme, we come here because we insist that even though there is a strange man in Washington, that doesn't mean the rest of us hasn't, fallen off. And my wish is that for equality, we send that same signal the next couple of years where DEI is being challenged, keep it alive, and then push again.
Yeah, I agree to that. Keep DEI alive, and push for respect people, be yourself, and I think actually those that stick to those values are going to attract a lot of females and a lot of talents, because it's nice to work in such an environment. So use it as a business opportunity when others are not doing it. We can do it. It's possible. And just listening to you sitting here and saying it, I'm sure you will attract a lot of female applicants. Yeah.
Good. And Leah?
Well, heard. I think, we're in a struggling time, and a lot of the big questions are now being thrown up into the air. So I think what is really needed is for the Nordic countries to stand their ground on gender equality. And we need the companies that will stick to their principles, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's good for business. And I think that is maybe also what can save this agenda, is that, as you mentioned, in Europe, we're going to need more hands, right? So we have this incredible, talented pool of women. So for the businesses, it will be a matter of competitiveness, and I think they're the companies who are most gender diverse. They are the ones who are going to win.
So with these words, the Nordic will stand ground, and we will see you in 2 years from now at the COP, and then we will discuss further. So please give the panel a big applause.